Thank you for joining us. The Fogelberg Foundation of Peoria, with assistance from WCBU Public Radio, is pleased to bring you the Dan Fogelberg Peoria Tour. My name is Hugh Higgins, and I'll be your guide along the road. We'll begin the tour at Woodruff High School. If you're using a GPS system to direct you, addresses will be provided for stops on the tour. For Woodruff High School, set your destination for 1800 Northeast Perry. The school is actually located at the corner of Perry and Abington Hill. But there's a little twist. In 2008, a group of dedicated fans initiated a successful effort to have Abington Hill renamed as Honorary Fogelberg Parkway. This street was chosen for several reasons. This street is the connector between Glen Oak Grade School and Woodruff High School, where all three Fogelberg boys attended. The street signs are located at several intersections. Woodruff was built in 1937, but was recently closed and is now being transitioned into a vocational training center. Dan graduated from Woodruff in 1969 and showed musical promise at an early age. While attending Woodruff High School, Dan was a member of a popular local group called The Coachmen and recorded his very first original songs with them. Dan then attended the University of Illinois as a theater major, later changing his studies to art. He continued to hone his songwriting skills, performing regularly and gaining notoriety in the emerging folk music scene. It was there where he was discovered by promoter Irving Azoff, and in 1972, Dan recorded his first feature album titled Home Free. Now, just across the street, you'll see the lower entrance to Glen Oak Park. If you proceed uphill here, just 0.3 of a mile, you'll find the Glen Oak Park Amphitheater on the right. Go ahead and pull in the parking lot to admire the Glen Oak Lagoon. And in winter, the lagoon freezes over quite solid and is a popular attraction with the public for ice skating. Now, Glen Oak Amphitheater bears significance on our tour. These days, it hosts the Peoria Municipal Band performances in summer, as well as Movies Under the Stars, and a tremendous fireworks show on July 3rd. But in the 70s, great concerts were held here too. Bands like Bob Seger, Fleetwood Mac, and yes, Dan Fogelberg performed here. Dan played a Coming Home concert here in August of 1975. Dan's career had catapulted in 1974 with the release of his second album, Souvenirs, and the top 10 hit Part of the Plan. He was now a headliner and not an opening act. The opener that night in 75 was Leo Kottke, followed by Fool's Gold. Then Dan came out to do a solo set with just guitars and piano. He took a short break and then returned with his backup band, Fool's Gold, and rocked out the hits from Souvenirs and tunes from his yet unreleased album, Captured Angel. After finishing the set, local promoter Jay Goldberg took the stage. He had just received the call saying only moments before Dan had been awarded the New Artist of the Year by the American Music Association. It was a great night for Dan. Our next GPS destination, 1302 East Fry. So, if you return to Fogelberg Parkway, take a right-hand turn, and just 50 yards away on the left-hand side of the street is a convenience store at 1302 East Fry. This street was also renamed Fogelberg Parkway for another reason. I hope you're all familiar with the song Same Old Lang Syne. As the story goes, when Dan went out to buy whipped cream for the family's Irish coffees on Christmas Eve, he ran into his old lover at a grocery store. They decided to catch up and have a drink, but being Christmas Eve, they couldn't find an open bar. So they bought a 6-pack at the liquor store and drank it in her car. Well, this little convenience store here at 1302 East Fry is the liquor store where that purchase was made. Since then, many fans have made their purchases here, but we don't recommend drinking it in your car. We will now travel north for a half mile on Prospect Avenue. So, from Fogelberg Parkway, take a right-hand turn to proceed. As you travel north, you will continue to see bits of Glen Oak Park. Here on the right, just past the corner of McClure and Prospect, you will see Luthi Botanical Gardens. It hosts a small conservatory, rose gardens, and lovely landscaping. We have it added to the tour for a reason. Please just bear with us a bit. Just another 3/10 of a mile north here on Prospect. On the right, you will see the entrance to Springdale Cemetery. This majestic Victorian cemetery runs directly adjacent to Glen Oak Park and covers rural grounds with over 223 acres, numerous elevations, and over 6 miles of roadways winding through its hills. Why do we bring this up? Dan's third album was Captured Angel, and the closing song is The Last Nail. Remember the words? We walked together through the gardens and graves. I watched you grow to be a woman. Well, Dan grew up just a few blocks from here, and like most kids in the neighborhood, he explored Springdale Cemetery, Glen Oak Park, and of course, Luthi Gardens. While not documented, it's quite likely that these beautiful and tranquil settings also provided the inspiration for those lines from The Last Nail. From here, continue to travel north on Prospect Avenue, approximately 2.3 miles, until you reach Grandview Drive. You are now technically in Peoria Heights. Grandview Drive is a 2-mile scenic roadway with magnificent views and gorgeous homes. On a visit to Peoria in 1910, Teddy Roosevelt was said to proclaim this as the world's most beautiful drive. From that statement, one of our local radio and television stations adopted the call letters WMBD. In 1996, Grandview Drive was added to the National Registry of Historic Places as a historic district. The significance for us, though, is the connection to Dan. His first album in 1972 was Home Free. The final song on that album is called The River. This song was Dan's first river reference, and there would be many recurring river references throughout his career. As the song goes, I was raised by a river, weaned upon the sky, and in the mirror of the water, I saw myself learn to cry. In interviews later in his career, Dan also spoke of these river views as an inspirational place where he would come to enjoy the beauty of nature and write. He was often found in a particular spot, nestled between 2 pines, a place he called his sacred spot. That spot is just ahead, where Fairhaven Drive meets this road. You'll see a bench here that was placed in Dan's honor in 2010. One of the Dan Fogelberg Memorial Commemorative Committee members, Diane Turner, wanted to do something herself to honor Dan. She had the Park District place the bench here so that people would stop, pause, and enjoy the same inspirational views that inspired Dan. It's visited frequently, and many people do take the time to pause now that that bench is here. Another quote from Dan states that he also looked upon the river as a metaphor. Just like this river that flowed to the sea, he knew that he too would also have to follow a similar course. To be the artist that dwelled within him, like this river, he would have to leave Peoria. The last stop on the tour is the Dan Fogelberg Memorial Site. You can GPS the nearest address at 201 Morton Street. Directionally, you will continue to travel the balance of Grandview Drive, and you will go down a winding hill that stops at Lawrence Street, Lorentz, Lawrence Street. At that stop sign, you will see a bustling intersection of Adams. Take a right on Northeast Adams, and you will be traveling south. You have 2 options to visit the Dan Fogelberg Memorial Site. If you have mobility issues and cannot walk far, then travel 2 miles to this Morton Street address, and you'll see a brown sign on the left issued by the state of Illinois, with arrows pointing to the Dan Fogelberg Memorial and Constitution Gardens. Turn left on Morton Street, and it's only 2/10 of a mile to the park. There's adequate parking here, and it is the closest point of access. But the ideal visit to the Dan Fogelberg Memorial should begin on foot by parking in the Peoria Riverplex parking lot at 600 Northeast Water Street. Once there, if you look to the river, you'll see a bike path, Walk north on this bike path and begin. It's the most beautiful way to see the park. Dan Fogelberg was born in Peoria on August 13, 1951, and was the third of three sons born to Margaret and Lawrence Fogelberg. Dan's musical influence began with them. Margaret was a classically trained vocalist and music teacher, and Lawrence Fogelberg was also a music director and the band director in Peoria and Pekin. Dan would later pay homage to his father with the wonderful song Leader of the Band. Dan produced 21 albums and CDs before his career was cut short in December of 2007 when he passed away from advanced prostate cancer. Within a few months of his passing, a small grassroots movement was established to create a permanent memorial here in his hometown. With the help of Dan's endorsed websites, thelivinglegacy.net and danfogelberg.com, and also a successful Facebook campaign, a call went out to his fans around the world, asking for donations to create a memorial of natural stones and boulders that would be etched with excerpts of Dan's lyrics. In addition to the request for funds, fans were also asked to submit their suggestions as to what words they believe would be fitting and stand the test of time. The response was overwhelming. As you walk this path, the first stones you see contain the lyrics for the song Ever On. It's a song of hope that conjures both Celtic and Native American prayers and echoes Dan's long and abiding respect for our fragile environment. These smaller stones lead the way to the memorial. As you look upon the three granite boulders at the memorial, each has a significance. The boulder on the left contains an excerpt from Part of the Plan, the hit song that took Dan from an opening act to a headliner. These words were also the number one choice submitted by his many loyal fans. The center boulder contains an excerpt from Icarus Ascending. Given Dan's many beautiful works, the decision process was long and hard. But after some research, an article was found that offered Dan's own words regarding the inspiration and meaning behind this song. His words are as follows, quote, "This is a very important song to me as a songwriter. It's a statement about my personal philosophy of being an artist. The gift of art is an incredible blessing from the Creator. I believe that. It's not an easy life, not a popular choice to make if you want to be everybody's friend. It will be very difficult, but if you pursue it unfailingly, I believe you will be greatly rewarded in a way people who are not given this creative spark will ever understand. I'm not talking financial here, but spiritual rewards. Many great artists never realize financial rewards. This is a song to those artists. This song says you have to have enormous courage to follow the muse. And that is Icarus." The final boulder on the right is a dedication boulder. It contains a prophetic excerpt from the song River of Souls. The words here foreshadowed Dan's brief and fleeting glimpse in this fast and fragile world. This memorial was dedicated on August 28, 2010. Over 500 fans from 38 states gathered here to dedicate the memorial, along with Dan's mother, his brother Mark, and his wife Jean. The participants' response was overwhelming, and the demand to make the gathering an annual event was inspiring. The second gathering in Peoria was held on what would have been Dan's 60th birthday. The bench you see beside the memorial was made possible by the generous private donations of a few loving friends and fans. In addition to the celebration of Dan's legacy, the Fogelberg Foundation of Peoria designates a charity each year that echoes the Foundation's mission statement of funding arts programs for children and supporting prostate cancer awareness. In the past 2 years, the Fogelberg Foundation has donated over $20,000 to Peoria area programs in need. For more information on Dan Fogelberg's legacy, please visit danfogelberg.com, thelivinglegacy.net, and facebook.com/Dan Fogelberg Music. For more information on the Fogelberg Foundation of Peoria, visit dfpeoria.org. Thank you.